Let me take you back to that night, when the aromas of roasted sage, caramelized onions, and tart cranberries filled our house to the furthest corners, when the kitchen clock seemed to be running fast, and every sound, the click of the oven, the drip of water, the creak of the floorboards, wove itself into my bustle as if to remind me, this is your day, your holiday, your work. Thanksgiving. Or, as my sister-in-law Louise allowed herself to call it, with that expression on her face that women give when they are used to ordering from 2 Michelin restaurants but not to Grandma's sweet potato casserole. She said this lazily, looking around the table, which was set to the brim, and at the very moment when I had just pulled the second turkey out of the oven, juicy, golden brown, the kind of thing for which I would have given any tip to the chef if it hadn't been me. Next time we should order takeout, she said, and her voice was still ringing in my head even after hours, despite the clatter of the dishes and the heartfelt hum of the football game in the background. At least it will be edible. And before we continue, write in the comments what city you are watching this video from. Enjoy. It took me a while to realize what had happened, because my whole body ached, my legs from endless hours in the kitchen, my back from the heavy baking sheets, and my hands were still sticky from the marinade when I straightened the napkins on the table. My shirt was soaked through, my face was burning, and the only thing I'd eaten since morning was a tiny piece of cornbread that I'd grabbed with my fingers as I'd barely put the food on their plates, hurrying to make sure it was hot, perfect, so they could feel how hard I'd worked. Amazing, my husband Matteo snorted, not even looking at me, just leaning back in his chair with the expression that usually accompanies a lazy joke or a football commentary. And that was enough. Not because the food, my whole preoccupation, was suddenly underrated, but because I suddenly realized it wasn't about the food at all. It wasn't about the roast turkey or the burnt crumbs, not about the salt and spices, not about the serving temperature. The thing was, no one, absolutely none of them, respected my work, my invisible, exhausting, infinitely generous part that I put into it every time they came to this house and expected everything to be perfect, delicious, loving, but at the same time they didn't even feel the need to pretend to be grateful. I snapped back, taking off my apron, breathing heavily from the anger growing inside me like yeast in dough, and they laughed. First Louisa, then Matteo's mother, and then he himself, with that same tired snort that pretends no big deal when it's precisely in this no big deal that everything that kills a woman from the inside is hidden. They laughed, forgetting about all the holidays that were happening inside me, that I carried like a burden and at the same time like a crown. And then Christmas came, but we'll get to that. I took off my apron, adjusted it mechanically, like a cross on my chest, and said, next time, you can all pay for takeout, because I'm done. And I left. Not demonstratively, not theatrically, I just stepped out of the kitchen and disappeared into the hallway like steam over pots. Do you know what they did? They laughed. Matteo didn't follow me. He didn't even say my name. He didn't even ask if I was okay. I poured a glass of red wine in the kitchen, dark and thick like my anger, and leaned against the counter, feeling the tension in my shoulders slowly fade, giving way to icy indifference. No one came to check on me. No one offered to help with the dishes. They continued eating as if nothing had happened, as if I was a background element of their coziness, as if I was part of the decor, aromatic, useful, but not requiring attention. Someone turned on a football game, and the announcer let out a whoop of joy at another touchdown. Louise made a joke, but I didn't even hear it. I was invisible. I didn't say another word that night. As the last car pulled out of the driveway, the headlights dimmed, and the winter silence settled over the street like a heavy, invisible blanket, I didn't grumble at Matteo about what had happened, though the words swarmed in my head, breaking against the hurt like raindrops against glass. I just lay down on the bed without a sound, turning my back to him, feeling the cold emptiness between us stretch wider and deeper than any misunderstanding. He didn't apologize. He didn't try to touch my hand, didn't whisper my name, didn't ask how I was feeling. He simply rolled over onto his other side, as if nothing had happened, as if I was part of the decor and not the person who filled the house with the sense of celebration. The next morning, I didn't clean, and that was my first silent statement. I let the dishes dry in the sink, crumbs scatter across the counter, the oilcloth slide to one side, as if I had decided not only not to clean up but to demonstrate that this chaos was not mine. Matteo walked into the kitchen, yawned, rubbed his eyes lazily, saw the disaster area, and without thinking for a second asked, "Are we going to eat the leftovers for lunch?" I looked at him, long, hard, with the weariness that was the essence of my last years, and said, "I'm not touching a single dish. Eat whatever you want." Then I dressed, slowly, with purpose, as if I were going to an important meeting, and walked out of the house, leaving behind half-drunk coffee, silence, and his bewilderment. I went to the park, got into the car, wrapped myself in my coat even though it was warm, and just breathed. For the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to feel anger, pure, searing, yet cleansing, like a flame that penetrated to the core. I remembered how I had been treated, not just that day but for years, as if I were a background shadow, a fairy who was supposed to magically make the holidays happen, and gratitude was optional. Every time Louisa rolled her eyes, every time Mateo's mother made a snide comment about my cooking, every time Mateo remained silent, pretending not to hear, every time I swallowed the bitterness and smiled. But not now. Not anymore. They didn't understand that I didn't just cook. I ran the holidays. I was the one picking the dates, booking the cabins, organizing the rental cars, planning the menus, buying the right pajamas, coordinating the Secret Santa, sending out reminders, compiling lists, double-checking, triple-checking, exhausted. I was making memories happen. They just showed up as guests, not as accomplices. I opened my email and started unsubscribing, not just physically, but mentally. First, the Asheville Christmas cabin was gone. Second, the Anna Maria Island beach house reservation for New Year's was canceled. Third, I called that fancy place in Sarasota where we used to have Easter dinner and said, "Give our table to someone else." Each cancellation sounded like dominoes. I watched plans fall apart and found a strange, almost celebratory satisfaction in the chaos. They didn't find out right away. A week later, Louisa texted, "Hey, can you send me the address of the cabin again? We're trying to plan our trip." I texted back, "No cabin. Cancelled. Not planning anything else. You can do it yourself." She didn't answer. Not that day, not the next. 3 hours after I sent that text, Mateo came home from work. He put his briefcase down with a heavy sigh, sat on the edge of the couch, rubbed his face as if searching for patience, and asked, "Why is Louisa so mad about Christmas?" I looked at him calmly, reservedly, but there was already steel in my voice, because she decided that I would do everything anyway, no matter what. No matter how she treated me. He remained silent, fidgeted, as if feeling his way back, and finally said, "You could have at least told people." I stared at him and asked, "You mean like you stood up for me when your sister insulted me at the dinner table?" He didn't answer. December 24th arrived. By now, our tree would usually be up, twinkling with lights, and stockings with names embroidered on them would be hanging on the mantel. The guest room would be done up, the blankets folded neatly, and Louisa's kids and I would bake cookies for Santa, leaving them on a plate with a note and a glass of milk. This year, nothing. No decorations. No lights. Just the quiet hum of the dishwasher and an awkward silence between Mateo and me. He asked hesitantly if we were still giving presents to his family. I said, no. I didn't draw any names this year. They can figure it out on their own. Christmas had come and gone. Mateo's mother tried to arrange something, but when it came time to cook, no one volunteered to help. The result was frozen lasagna, a sad bowl of salad, and store-bought cookies in a plastic tray. I saw it all on Facebook. No photos of stockings, no matching outfits, no light in their eyes. Just blurry shots of people looking tired and confused. Louise posted a photo of her kids eating pizza. The caption read, "It just isn't the same without our usual holiday magic." Damn it, it wasn't. And after Christmas was ruined, I thought maybe they'd understand. Maybe someone would call me. Maybe Mateo would finally sit down with me, hold my hand, and ask how I felt. He didn't. Not once. He acted like canceled plans just happened, like rain or a canceled flight, something out of his control. Like I was too emotional, too intense, too harsh. Like my pain was an inconvenience and not real. One evening in mid-January, as the early darkness slowly descended on the house and the reflection of the two of us in the bathroom mirror seemed alien and somehow unnaturally distant, I, holding my toothbrush and listening to my own heartbeat, suddenly asked the question that had been burning in my chest for a long time. Do you even care that your family disrespected me? That you laughed with them when they made fun of my cooking? He did not even look away from the mirror, did not change his expression, as if the question were no more than part of the daily noise. He spat, wiped his mouth with a towel with an edge already damp from the steam, and said, "It was a joke. You take this too seriously." It was then, in that quiet, ordinary moment, that I realized with crystal clarity that I was alone in my marriage, that my pain had never been taken seriously by him, and that hurt me more than anything Louisa had ever said, with her disdain, her half-closed eyes, and her exaggeratedly lazy voice. After that, I stopped showing up at events, and at first they probably thought it was temporary, that I had gone crazy, as they like to say when a woman refuses to bend over backwards. Louisa's youngest daughter had a birthday party in February. Usually I helped decorate the room myself, baked a cake according to her favorite recipe, organized children's games, but this time I didn't go. Mateo went alone, returned with a piece of cake on a paper plate, put it down on the kitchen table without saying a word and said, "They asked where you were." I looked at him without taking my eyes off him and said, "I'm not angry. I'm done for." I meant it. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't force it, I just said it calmly, and it rang in the air as if it were the end of a long, tedious chapter. In mid-March, I got a text from Sophia, Louisa's eldest daughter, the one who had helped me peel sweet potatoes the previous year, saying, "Thank you for every little gesture," and hugging me with the sincerity that only children who haven't yet learned to manipulate can. "Aunt Clara, are you mad at us? I miss what we used to do." It touched me a little, because she was only 15, and there was real sadness in her voice. I didn't blame her, so I responded warmly, "I'm not mad at you, honey. I just want to distance myself from the adults who treated me badly." She didn't respond. But 2 hours later Louise texted me, and her message, short and sharp, consisted of just one line, "Don't drag my child into this." I took a deep breath, holding back my irritation, because everything inside me had long since ceased to be a storm, but was lava, slow, dense, unstoppable, and replied, "Then maybe teach your child to treat people better than you do yourself." Louise didn't reply. But, of course, she posted some vague status on social media about people who make a drama out of nothing and destroy traditions, because, as we know, it's easier to make someone else look hysterical than to look in the mirror. April came. Our anniversary was approaching, 10 years. Usually we did something nice, spent the weekend in Savannah, walked along old streets, stayed in cozy hotels, dined in restaurants where we remembered the dishes and said warm words to each other. This year, I said nothing. I wondered if he would do anything, if he would remember, if he would feel that it was important. The night before, Mateo had come home with a bouquet from the local supermarket, a ribbon that had already fallen to one side, and a bottle of wine, regular, cheap. "Happy anniversary," he said, handing them to me as if I were an office colleague with whom formality should be maintained. There was no card, no reservation, no hint of a plan. I looked at the flowers, at his face, and asked, "Is this what 10 years means to you?" He shrugged, looking away. "We've had a tough few months. I didn't think you'd be ready for anything." "You didn't ask," I said, feeling the ash-like weariness rise up again deep inside me. He rolled his eyes. "You've been cold since Thanksgiving. You act like I cheated or something." "And here it is," I said. "No, you didn't. But you showed me how little I mean to you." "That's worse." He chuckled, throwing the bottle down on the table in irritation, the wine slamming loudly against the wood. "Jesus, Clara, it was just a joke. You turned it into a war." "No," I said calmly. "The war started when I realized that no one would fight for me." The following week, his mother called me. Her voice was soft, tired, with intonations that seemed to beg me to be reasonable. "Honey, it's been long enough, don't you think? During the holidays, we all say things we don't mean." I was silent, letting the words fade into the air, and then I said quietly, "She was serious. She always is." This was the first time you all said it out loud. Mateo's mother sighed, a strangled sigh, as if she had already anticipated my answer. "We're planning a summer barbecue. Why don't you and Mateo go? A clean slate." I paused and said quietly, "Only if Luisa apologizes." There was a long silence. "Let's not talk about pride," she said. I hung up. And you know what was funny? How people treat you when they assume you'll always be there, swallowing insults, doing your job, taking jokes, smiling for the camera even when you want to cry. But when you stop, really stop, they fall apart. By May, the group chat the Mateo family used to coordinate holidays, share recipes, photos, and good jokes had all but disappeared, as if the air had been sucked out of it, leaving only awkward shadows of its former fun. It used to ping constantly, photos of birthday cakes, funny turkey gifts, endless threads of discussions about who's bringing what, and memes about a chaotic but supposedly charming Thanksgiving where everyone forgot the ingredients and remembered the stuffing at the last minute. This chat, my fingerprints were all over it, like cookie dough. I had created it. I had given it a name full of irony and love, last name Circus. Everyone had laughed at the time, thinking it was cute and apt, because behind every chaos there was someone who knew how to organize it, someone who carried the circus on his shoulders, like a clown who was a juggler, a conductor, and a janitor. Now Sierra, Mateo's cousin, would occasionally post half-hearted, almost desperate attempts to rekindle the old spark. "So, does anyone want to spend the 4th of July? And the silence was deafening. 2 days later, "We could do it at home, but only if I don't cook alone again." Still nothing. Complete radio silence. Finally, Mateo's cousin Ricardo, usually the most cheerful and vocal, responded, "To be honest, I'm not ready for anything this year. The atmosphere is just not the same." I took a screenshot and saved it as a reminder that without me, even their cozy hut lost its focus. The whole structure wobbled as soon as I stopped supporting it. One Saturday in early June, when summer was just beginning to bloom in the green crowns of trees and the lazy heat, I went to the grocery store to buy strawberries and mint, for the first time in a long time, just for myself, without a list, without the goal of pleasing. And there, turning into the baking section, I saw Luisa. No one warned me, I was not ready, but perhaps this was for the best. She stood there clutching a packet of sugar, and when she looked up, she paused for a moment, and then forced a smile, fake and sticky, like the wrapper of a stale caramel. "Hey, stranger," she said, and I simply nodded, trying to push the cart past. "You know," she began, blocking the way with her cart, "the family misses you very much, especially your mother. She says things just aren't the same without your touch." I said nothing. I wasn't going to play her game, wasn't going to pretend that all this could be glued together with a smile in the baking aisle. But she didn't back down, tilted her head to the side, and said something that, if I'd had a little less self-control, would have almost made me laugh at the absurdity of it, but I think we're all tired of walking on eggshells. I looked her in the eye, calm and clear, and said, "You weren't walking on eggshells. You were throwing them." She blinked, and I saw her false confidence crack, just for a moment, but it cracked. "Whatever you say," she muttered, starting the cart, and I let go, but my hands were shaking not from fear but from that good old rage that accumulates over the years, like the sediment in a bottle of wine left on a warm windowsill. That night, I told Mateo what had happened. Not because I expected sympathy, not because I thought it would excite him, but because I wanted to see his reaction, like someone conducting an experiment. He exhaled, as if I had inconvenienced him again, as if the shadow of my anger had overshadowed his football game. "Oh my God, are we still doing this?" he said, and it all became clear. No defense, no concern, no attempt to understand. I asked, "Do you have any idea what I gave up for your family?" "Every holiday, every plan, every tradition, we had it all because I created it. And when they made fun of me, you laughed. You didn't protect me. You didn't even check in on me." He looked irritated, as if I had disrupted his evening, as if my words were disturbing his peace. "So what now?" he said. "Are you going to keep this on everyone's mind forever?" No, I said. I'll hold this over my head and decide how much longer I want to carry it. It was July. My birthday was on a Saturday. I wasn't expecting fireworks, I wasn't expecting a parade, but somewhere inside me there was a glimmer of hope that Mateo would, despite everything, still plan something quiet, something personal, something that would show that 10 years meant something. Instead, I woke up to a text from his mother, "Happy birthday. I hope Mateo treats you well today." I laughed out loud because he'd forgotten. No plan, no card, not even a hint of preparation. When I asked if he'd made reservations, he shrugged. "You're picky. Thought you'd want to pick the place." I left the house alone that night. I went to a restaurant I loved before all this happened, before I lost my appetite, not just for food, but for a life filled with a lack of recognition. I ordered a glass of wine and 2 courses, sat on the terrace, and watched families laugh, argue, take pictures, touch each other's hands. When the waiter came over and asked what I was celebrating, I said, yes. The day I stopped doing things for people who never appreciated me. Later, I went home, packed a suitcase with fewer things than I'd ever had, and went to sleep in the guest room. The next morning, after spending my first night in the guest room, curled up on a couch that was never meant for long sleep but ironically turned out to be the most peaceful place I'd fallen asleep in months, I told Mateo I was going to stay at my sister's for a while. He barely looked up from his phone, didn't turn around, didn't ask why or for how long, just shrugged and, without taking out his headphones, said, "If that's what you want." He didn't even understand that it was the end. Not a respite, not a whim, not a temporary escape, but a determination as hard as bone, exposed after years of gentle concessions. The next day, I moved in with my sister. Her guest room was small, modest, with light-flowered wallpaper and an old wooden chest of drawers that smelled of bay leaves, but it had something that had been missing from our house with Mateo for a long time: peace. No tension, no cautious steps in the morning, no cold glances over mugs of coffee that had long since become a ritual of silence, not intimacy. Just me, my suitcase, and my decision, which now sounded inside as clear as a line from a song you know by heart. At first, Mateo didn't take it seriously. He thought I needed to cool down, as he'd said before, when I expressed irritation, when I said I was tired, and then he'd turn up the TV and say, "Don't start." A few days passed, then a week, then 3. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't look for excuses to check in on him. I didn't miss what was destroying us. He sent one message, short, unapologetically, "You've made your point. Can we talk now?" I didn't respond. Instead, I started making a list. Not of groceries. Not of things to do. But of what was mine, what I had built, and what I was no longer willing to tolerate. By mid-August, with the heat so hot the pavement was shaking in the air and the night bringing no relief, I filed for divorce. Mateo was devastated. He called me over and over, voicemails blaring from his voice. "I didn't mean for things to go this far. Can't we go to a therapist or something?" Too late. I'd been seeing a therapist on my own for 6 months. He'd never noticed. Not a single question. Not a single interest. Just the certainty that everything would work out on its own, that I was an integral part of the furniture, a habit, a thing. After I filed, his family didn't turn on me, as one might expect. They exploded, at each other. Guilt flowed like water. His mother called me one night. In real tears. She said she missed me, that things weren't the same anymore, that she hadn't realized how much I'd done before everything fell apart. I kept my cool. When your daughter insulted me in front of everyone and you didn't say anything, that's when everything changed. And when Mateo laughed, that's when they ended. She begged me to reconsider, telling me that people make mistakes, that we need to forgive. I said, "You should have taught your kids that kindness is important. This is what happens when it doesn't happen." After that, she never called again. Here's the part one didn't plan, but it gave me something akin to satisfaction. In October, Sierra threw a last-minute Halloween party. I saw the pictures online: store-bought candy, cheap decor, plastic tablecloths, limp fairy lights that were hanging down before dark. 3 people showed up: Milo, a cousin, and one of her kids' friends. No one helped clean up. No one brought anything. The next day, she wrote on Facebook, "Remember to appreciate the people who go to the trouble to make things special. You'll miss them when they're gone." I said nothing. But my sister and I, sitting at the kitchen table with mugs of hot tea, looked at each other and laughed for a long time. Not maliciously. Just recognizing what we'd known for a long time. The divorce dragged on. Mateo stalled, saying he was reconsidering everything, trying to put off signing, as if the longer he denied it, the greater the chance I'd come back. In December, he showed up at my sister's door with a cardboard box. Inside were postcards, photographs, tickets from trips, anniversary cards, even bits of embroidery I'd once hand-sewn onto Christmas pajamas. "You can't just erase us," he said. "We had good years." I nodded. "We did, but I didn't erase us." "You did." That snort at that table told me exactly where I was. He looked broken, older, like he was finally starting to see in the months since. But I didn't feel sorry. I felt relief. I told him, "I'll see you in court." Thanksgiving came again. This time, I stayed home. I lit a candle, made myself a plate just for me. Stuffing, cranberry orange sauce, 1 small turkey breast. I sat at the table alone, but the solitude was warm, peaceful, filled with a respect that wasn't there when people who considered themselves family gathered around the table. No snide comments, no sidelong glances. Just me and the silence. And when I took my first bite, I smiled. Because it was so damn good. And I didn't care who else agreed. Mateo had lost more than his wife. After the divorce, his family blamed him. Louise kept her distance. Their group chat was dead forever. No more big family dinners. No more matching pajamas. No more traditions. They didn't laugh anymore. And I recovered. Slowly but surely. I reconnected with old friends, got a part-time job at a local bakery, started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but enough to remember what it was like to be seen. Was I perfect? No. I should have spoken up sooner. I should have set boundaries years ago. I waited too long. I let people walk all over me because I thought that's what good wives did. Good daughters-in-law. Good housewives. But I learned my lesson. And the next time I host a dinner party, it will be for people who bring more than just appetite. They bring respect. Leave a comment on what you think of this story and don't forget to subscribe and like the channel. See you soon.